What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. We're going to have a quick-hitting type of Next Pats episode for you today because we are fresh off a Patriots rookie minicamp practice. Yes, it's that time of year, friends. They are actually football players on a football field doing football-y types of things. Very exciting times for us all. Clearly, no pads yet, although players were in their helmets, jerseys, shorts, etc., and just getting to work while under the close, watchful eyes of the entire Patriots coaching staff and even some key members of their front office, like Elliott Wolf. John Stretch Stryker is really kind of wearing all sorts of different hats, but he's out there. He's wearing the pad. He's doing the Mike Vrabel thing, mixing it up with players in the middle of drills. So really interesting session for us to just have a chance to see because it's our first look at Will Campbell. It's our first look at guys like Jared Wilson and Kyle Williams, a couple of third-round picks, some undrafted rookies that we have been excited to lay eyes on. Efton Chisholm among them. If you haven't already, go back and listen to our episode on Next Pats here talking to Efton Chisholm's head coach, Aaron Best. Great to hear from Aaron about what it's like to coach Efton Chisholm, but also what it was like to coach Cooper Kupp, Kendrick Bourne, any similarities Efton Chisholm may have to those guys, so go back and check that out. Chisholm was out at practice today, one of the many undrafted rookies. The Patriots announced 16 undrafted rookies who signed with them today, including Efton Chisholm, but also Lan Larison. We're going to have more on Lan Larison on an upcoming Next Pats podcast. Brock Lampy, the fullback of the future, the football fullback of the future, according to James White. Again, go back and listen to that pod that we did with James a couple of weeks ago now, maybe a week and a half ago or so, where we got a chance to talk about Travion Henderson. But we'll get into some rookie minicamp practice takeaways in just a second. We'll hear from some of these rookies as well here on Next Pats. But first, wanted to knock out a couple of newsy items. Number one, Mike Vrabel told us before practice today that defensive coordinator Terrell Williams is dealing with a health issue, and he's not currently physically with the team. And Terrell Williams actually met with reporters on a Zoom call later in the day. He talked about a quote-unquote traumatic health scare that he had, and he's actually back home. He's in Detroit right now on doctor's orders. He is staying there and not traveling back to be in Foxborough and working with these guys in person. But he did want to make it very clear that just because he is physically away from the team, it doesn't mean that he is away from the team. He is still meeting with players and still coaching and doing as much coaching as he can in that way. But it sounds like, according to Vrabel, that Zach Core, who is a new member to this Patriots coaching staff, experience with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee, recently with the New York Giants, he is their inside linebackers coach, and he's handling a lot of the in-person duties that Terrell Williams can't handle right now because he is away from the team physically. So something to keep an eye on there for sure. You're trying to install your defense, and you don't have your defensive coordinator. Now, Mike Vrabel obviously is defensive head coach, although I could tell you today, we saw him flying all over the field. And yes, he spent time with defensive linemen, and yes, he was working with the linebackers, it looked like, or he's working as a linebacker at times. We'll get into that in a second. He's working very closely with special teams players for a stretch of time during today's practice. So it surely has to benefit the Patriots that he has as much defensive knowledge as he does, clearly, in Terrell Williams' absence. But this is a significant absence. Like, let's call it for what it is. This is your defensive coordinator. You're trying to teach young players, new players, what you're trying to do, and you can, but he's not there in person. So let's just keep an eye on that. We wish Terrell Williams well. He and his family, hopefully he is improving and they're all doing well. Right now, it does sound like it was a serious issue. He called it, again, he used the word traumatic. So anytime you hear that is certainly scary, and we hope he is trending in the right direction. And Mike Vrabel said, the team is excited to get him back whenever they do get him back. So that was news item number one that I just wanted to mention here. The other was that Travion Henderson, the Patriots' second-round pick, the running back out of Ohio State, was not present for today's Patriots minicamp practice. Vrabel's actually asked before the practice began, hey, any injuries, anybody that might not be out there today because of injuries? And he said, I'll let you guys figure that out. You guys all have work to do. Let's keep you busy and you can get out there to practice and see what's going on. And Henderson wasn't there, which is disappointing because in a practice like this might have been a cool opportunity for us to, get to see just a little bit of his athleticism on display. Again, it's helmets and shells and T-shirts and guys like Travion Henderson who are as explosive as he is. Sometimes these are the types of practices where you can see the best athletes really pop. And, so that's one reason why, you would have liked to see Travion Henderson out there. We'll keep an eye on his availability moving forward. We'll do some digging, seeing if that's anything that's going to keep him out for a significant stretch of time. But he was not out there. Who was out there? Will Campbell, Kyle Williams, Jared Wilson, 3 of their first 4 picks. Craig Woodson was out there as well. Joshua Farmer, Braden Swinson. Okay, so the rest of their draftees were out there. Marcus Bryant. We did not see Andy Borregales, and he is listed as Andy now, so I want to make sure we're calling him by the correct name. But he was not out there. I'm wondering if he was actually kicking out in the rain somewhere because it was a freaking downpour throughout the practice. It was held inside the field house on the grounds there at One Patriot Place. And so we did not see the kicker. We did see Julian Ashby, the long snapper. So the entire class of draftees were there, as well as, again, Efton Chisholm as an undrafted rookie. You had Lan Larison as an undrafted rookie. Let's scroll down the list here. I can just give you a few names of others that maybe you know, maybe you don't. Ben Wooldridge was the quarterback out there from Louisiana, 6'2", 214. I didn't mention Kobe Minor, but he was out there as well, Mr. Irrelevant. Jeremiah Webb, a receiver out of South Alabama. He was there today. Demir Blankumsey. We'll go with Blankumsey out of Memphis. G. Scott, 6'3", 240-pound tight end out of Ohio State. A couple bigger program guys here. C.J. Dupree from Alabama, 6'5", 256. I'll have a note on C.J. in just a minute here. Jack Conley, 6'7", 333. The offensive lineman out of BC, looking and straight out of New Canaan, Connecticut as well. Really interesting to see him out there and functioning as a immovable object at times. You're running this little drill where you're working on your double teams at the line of scrimmage as offensive lineman, and Doug Marrone is leading the charge there. And there were times where Jack Connolly is the guy who's holding the bag, so he's not actually the one like participating in the drill. He's being blocked, and he was hard for 2 guys to move. There was not a lot of give there from Jack Conley. So we spent a lot of time talking about 2 BC linemen, Ozzie Trapillo, who ends up with the Chicago Bears, and Drew Kendall, who ends up with the Philadelphia Eagles. But Jack Conley ended up with the New England Patriots. And he was out there and playing a lot and getting a lot of action today at today's practice. So just one of many notes that we have. And let's launch into the rest of it. But let's start at the very top, and let's start with Vrabel. We knew this was coming, right? And they will continue to roll downhill on us the more Patriots practices we see. But the stories of Mike Vrabel and his involvement and his hands-on approach, so to speak, at Patriots practices is going to become, for fans, especially when it comes time for training camp, and we'll see just how involved he is. When the pads are on, my guess is 49-year-old Mike Vrabel's not going to be, trying to throw blocks or who knows. I'm not ruling anything out, okay? Far be it from me to suggest that I know what Mike Vrabel is going to be doing at any practice at any point on the calendar. But boy, the man is nonstop. He is. Give him a lozenge. Somebody, if you're listening to this podcast and you see Mike Vrabel later today, toss that man some sort of pain reliever for the throat specifically, because he is at a high volume, and he is constantly saying something to someone. He just won't stop coaching. It was entertaining to watch, and I'm sure it's beneficial to the players because they are hanging on his every word. But he really is, whether he's wearing the pad or not. At one point, he was wearing a yellow penny with the number 51 on it. He's playing middle linebacker in an 11-on-11 sort of drill. He's working with defensive linemen in the individual position drills, and he is got 2 hands on their shoulder pads, and he's, incline benching them to show them what they're supposed to be doing in said drill. So, I thought it was maybe most interesting, the most entertaining part of the practice might have been when he was working with players on the punt coverage team, and just the timing and the footwork and the hand placement and the purpose, really, of, remember, these guys are guys, for many of them, who were stars on their teams that end up going undrafted, right? So how much experience do they actually have on special teams, period? Never mind in this specific position that they were working on today for the punt coverage unit. And he was in their ears constantly and letting them have it at times. It looked like there was some hard coaching going on with C.J. Dupree. And I want to make sure that we have that pronunciation correct. CJ's out of Alabama, and he's a bigger body guy, but he got some one-on-one coaching on multiple occasions from not only Mike Vrabel, but also John Stryker. You also saw him getting some close one-on-one coaching with Mike Vrabel during an offensive-defensive period. So it wasn't just during the special teams stuff. And just after doing a little bit of research, it does sound like it is C.J. Dupree, so nailed it. Wasn't getting a little too fancy. I thought I might have been getting a little too... Is it Dipper? Is it Dupree? It's Dupree. But a lot of one-on-one time. So this is another one of their undrafted rookies coming from a big-time program that maybe they have plans for. That position, usually size and athleticism plays. You look at Dupree's relative athletic score, it's very good. Now, the production wasn't necessarily off the charts at Alabama, but you're coming from Alabama. You're big, you're strong, you're athletic. He's got a chance. But let's consider that as a little bit of a side note to the overall bigger point, which is, boy, Vrabel is really exerting himself out there on the practice field, and it'll be fun, I'm sure, for fans to be able to finally see that in person whenever they get the opportunity to. Now, as far as Will Campbell goes, top 5 pick, number 4 overall. Where is he? Number 66. He's at left tackle, and that's the only place I saw him play today. So not a lot of, Peter Skoronski comps to this point, where he shows up and basically as soon as he's in the NFL, he's playing guard. He was playing left tackle, and to me, it's funny because there's been obviously so much talk about his arm length. I think people forget just how big this guy is. He's 6'6", almost 320 pounds, and he is an athlete. You can see him explode out of his stance. You can see on those drills where it is a double team. I get it. But, when it's Will Campbell and somebody else, generally speaking, the person holding the bag was getting moved a long way. So when you hear words like finish and strain, and you hear guys talk about, how those things are separators on the offensive line, you see all that from Will Campbell. You see the athleticism. The arm length, if you're wondering, to me, doesn't show up on a day like today. So we'll continue to watch it, and we'll continue to see how it goes, one-on-one pass rush reps and all of that. It didn't show up for me today. I did want to point out one thing that I noticed with Campbell, though, which I found interesting, which was at one point, and this was really just one play, so hard to read into it at all, right? But it did spark in my mind, having watched, enough of Will Campbell to know LSU didn't have him in a three-point stance all that often. And Josh McDaniels is, my guess is, going to want these offensive linemen at times in three-point stances and getting downhill and being able to create some movement in the run game in that way. And there was one play today where it looked like 4 of the 5 offensive linemen were in three-point stances, and Will Campbell was the one who wasn't. And I don't know why that would be, but I did ask him after practice today how much of that he did at LSU, how much of a focus that has been for him, and here's what he had to say immediately after the practice.
Yeah, not much. Something I really keyed in on in my pre-draft process. 3 points, being more versatile, things like that. So to be able to get out here, get some, live reps, it's been really good for me.
Is that one of your focuses, just to get more accustomed to that? Will they ever give you the opportunity to say, hey, like whatever you want to do on this particular play, 2-point, 3-point, like have at it?
No, I mean, we have rules, things that we have to abide by, within the playbook. But, whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to do it. Whatever they need me to do to help the team win in any certain way is what I'm going to do.
So if you're following other sports here in the Boston sports area, sort of the anti Rafael Devers in terms of whatever the team asks. That's what I'm willing to do. Now, Will Campbell hasn't made $300 million yet, playing his particular professional sport, be that as it may. I just found that to be one interesting point of note. So another thing for us to watch as we move forward, how comfortable is he in that three-point stance and how effective is he in that three-point stance? Again, I think he is such a good athlete that won't end up being an issue for him. We also heard from Jared Wilson. We heard from him, very personable young man. Both these guys really young, both 21 years old when they're drafted. And so, you're hoping if you're the Patriots, it's a nice young core to be able to protect Drake May for the long haul. And he was at center today. So Mike Vrabel did mention before practice that, hey, if you're on the interior there, you've got to be able to bounce back and forth between a couple of different positions, implying that Wilson will at some point get work at guard. And I think he's got a really good chance once he gets that work at guard to maybe even start his NFL career at guard, because to me, they still need a left guard. I don't know if it's going to be Cole Strange. I don't know if it's going to be Layden Robinson. We'll see on City So. There are some other options there, but if Garrett Bradbury's the center, Wilson could end up being your left guard, in my opinion. We'll see. But that's where he was today. I also thought it was interesting just to hear his description of Josh McDaniels, because that's going to lead us into our next note. But here's Jared Wilson and that big smile of his, talking about Josh McDaniels and his experience with the Patriots offensive coordinator to this point.
What stands out to you about Josh McDaniels?
His voice. He's really loud. I don't want to make fun of him, but he's a short guy. But once he talks, you hear him, and everybody stops and everybody listens to what he has to say. And he's a great OC. He's a great coach.
McDaniels was loud out there on the practice field today. You could see him get frustrated in an understanding and almost cheerful sort of way. You get the quarterback maybe misses an opening for a throw and ends up eating the football and, taking what would be a sack. And, we had him. That kind of stuff from Josh McDaniels. You're seeing the competitive juices flowing already, but you're also seeing him in sort of these more position-specific drills, going up to players and talking to them one-on-one. I saw it multiple times with Kyle Williams. I did see it with Efton Chisholm as well. So, he's in these guys' ears. He is clearly, it looks to me, very excited to be back on the practice field in this capacity and running an offense. And, it was Vrabel for the most part that we heard from, but there was a point in an offensive-defensive period, like an 11-on-11 type of period, where he was the one to kind of stop the practice and explain what was going on and how they wanted to do things. So, exerting his will, if you want to put it that way, but, flexing his coaching muscles at that point during the session, because he has the ability to do that. This guy's a head coach in the league. This guy's one of the most accomplished offensive coordinators in the history of the game. And so, Mike Vrabel's obviously going to give him the leeway to say, hey, guys, this is how it has to be. Let's make sure we handle it that way, even during something like a rookie minicamp. Now, I mentioned Kyle Williams earlier because he got some coaching from Josh McDaniels. Really interesting practice from Kyle Williams. One of the interesting things that we got to see today, there's almost a semi-Oklahoma drill part of the practice where obviously they're not in pads, so it's not a physical drill. But, you think of the Oklahoma drill, and I think of it as a 2-on-2 drill. But you see these tackling drills that I think I've seen termed as Oklahoma drills before. So you call it whatever you call it, where you have your ball carrier and you have your tackler, and one guy's trying to avoid the other. This is more of an angle drill today, and just a two-hand touch type of thing. But the players started back to back, and then they run about 10 yards apart, stop and turn, and come back together. One has the football, one doesn't. And I thought in that drill actually, one of the things that I'll be interested to see from Kyle Williams moving forward is just how quickly he's able to get out of his breaks, on things like these curls and hitches and comebacks. He is extremely fast. He's extremely explosive. We know that he's extremely quick at the line of scrimmage. It's these sharp breaking routes where you have to come back to the football. How many steps does it take him? How much footwork is needed to go from 60 miles an hour to 0 to stop, turn, maybe catch the football, and then ramp back up again and go in the other direction. That was something that I noticed from Kyle Williams, just watching him a little bit from his college tape. And, I think it's something that, we'll see how often they ask him to run those types of routes at the next level and what his footwork looks like as he continues to work with people like Josh McDaniels. But he made a couple of really nice catches in this practice. One on a comeback route, so it's interesting we bring that up. Corners playing way off and respecting the speed. Stops, comes back. Not an easy catch, had to actually leave his feet, but goes up, high points the thing, comes down inbounds. That was probably his best catch of the day. He made another on a dig coming across the middle where, again, he might have been blown up on this play, quite frankly, if pads were involved and contact was involved, but had to kind of wrestle it away from a safety and ends up making the catch there. So I thought it was good practice for Kyle Williams, and we'll see moving forward just, how much chemistry he's able to develop with a guy like Drake May. One of the reasons why I think a lot of people like Kyle Williams as much as they do is because right up before the draft, Steve Smith, who does some great work with Underdog and with friend of the podcast, James Palmer, was talking about Kyle Williams, fellow Southern California guys. You would say undersized receivers, both of them, but both thought to be extremely tough. We know what Steve Smith is. I'm not going to put Kyle Williams in that Steve Smith class as far as anything goes to this point. But Kyle Williams considered to be a tough player in his own right. The two had a picture, met up and took pictures together soon after Kyle Williams was drafted, according to Steve Smith's Twitter account. I asked Kyle Williams about their relationship, and I followed up and said something to the effect of, what are you bringing to the field in terms of intensity? Because we know that was one of the staples of Steve Smith as a pro, and one of the reasons why he could be such a dominant player at his size. Here's what Kyle Williams had to say. Let's play that back and forth now.
It means a lot, honestly. Somebody that's, like I said, I watched when I was a kid, but for me, I still have to accomplish a lot of things just for me to say that I have acceptance of that, a comparison. And just me and him, we chopped it up here and there as a LA guy, so just having that resemblance of a home state and everything, I feel like that's just good on our connection.
Do you bring any of what he brought to the field in terms of intensity as sort of one of the things he was known for?
You'll find out soon.
So maybe a little dog in Kyle Williams. I thought that was a great answer by him. Confident guy, really think he could bring a lot to this offense as an X. It looked like to me, again, let's pay attention where these guys are being used at least right now. And it doesn't mean they're limited to that role, but let's pay attention. Jared Wilson's at center. Will Campbell's at left tackle. Kyle Williams to me looks like an X receiver. That's where he was in college. His size might indicate that, he should be somewhere else according to some people, but we talked to Brian Hoyer about this before the draft, and he said just the way he runs his routes, the routes he was running at Washington State, he looked like an X to Brian Hoyer. Now we've seen his first practice in New England, and he looks like an X here too. At least that's probably where they're going to start him. My guess is at some point they're going to ask him to understand all sorts of different spots, all three different spots, the Z, which is the slot here in New England, the F, and the X. So will be interesting to see moving forward just how much they end up moving him around. Last note here, and it's a little bit of a tease for some content we have coming at you very, very soon. But Lan Larison, very busy out of the backfield. No Travion Henderson. He looked like the guy who maybe benefited the most from Henderson's absence. The UC Davis, undrafted rookie, about 6 feet, about 210 pounds. It's a guy who knows he's going to have to make this team as a special teams player, but had an excellent special teams career first couple years at UC Davis, returning kicks. Last year, really effective as a punt coverage tackler. Really efficient and really somebody who stood out in that regard. And so my guess is if he makes the team, it'll be because of those things, but he can give you some juice offensively too. And we are going to have a conversation about Lan Larison with his head coach, Tim Plow, very, very soon on the next Pats podcast. That will be next week at some point. Not sure scheduling-wise exactly when we will be sharing that with you, but keep an eye out for that. We will let you know. But we also want to let you know we're going to have some live content. YouTube Live, we did it during the draft. We did it before the draft for a mock draft. Have gotten some really good feedback, some really good interaction with you all, especially in our YouTube community that are watching us right now. Thank you. We love you all very, very much. Some live content immediately after the schedule drops. The schedule's dropping this next week, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock. So find us, find us on YouTube Live, 8 o'clock. As soon as the schedule comes out, we will have analysis for you. We know who the opponents are. We don't know the order in which the Patriots will be playing those opponents. So it's always a very, very fun time of year. You always get those silly social media videos, so we'll see what the Patriots have cooked up creatively. How much have they used Mike Vrabel and gotten their new, face of the franchise out in front of the camera in that way for the schedule release. So that'll be a lot of fun, but keep an eye out for us there. And again, we'll have multiple Next Pats episodes coming at you. We've got more about these rookies to figure out and to understand and to learn about. It's a really, really fun process, this process right after the draft, as we get to really dig deeper on all these different players that'll help shape the future of the New England Patriots. So stick with us, and we will talk to you next time on the Next Pats Podcast.